Anomalies. Anomalies.
Anomalies.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Anomalies. This is a program about things seen out of the corner of one's eye, about shadows and what lurks in those shadows. This is a program about the unexplained and the unexplainable.
Well, good evening and welcome to another episode of Anomalies. I was looking at the one we just did the other day and it says this is our 51st edition of this program. And I'm going, well, I didn't think we had been doing it that long, but when I look in the mirror every day, I say, yeah, we've been doing it quite a while. So tonight we have a very exciting guest, and I'm really happy to have one of our buddies back. Dave Jinks is not with us tonight. We have Sara Rucker Theissen, who, I don't know, you did some of the first programs in this series. You did one of our highest ones, as I recall. We did a show called Weird Washington, and you were part of a roundtable, and that's one of the most highly rated shows that we've ever done. So you're here to provide good luck for us tonight, Sara. How are you doing?
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, we're happy to have you. So our guest tonight is somebody I kind of know in a kind of tangential way. Nancy Myers is a friend of another guest that we've had on our show, and that would be Marty McCrae. And Marty was talking about Nancy and some of the things she's into, and I thought, we need to get Nancy on the program, and she was gracious enough to say, yeah, I'll do it. So, Nancy, thank you for being with us. Welcome from sunny Southern California. What part of Southern California are you in?
Hi, and thank you for having me. We are like right between LA and Palm Springs. So it's called the Inland Empire, right at the base of Mount Baldy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably not raining like mad in Southern California. Like it is. Yeah, I have a relative that lives in LA, and that's all she comments about is the drought. So and I'm just going to talk a little bit about what I know about you, but I really want you to fill in those gaps. You're a very special person. You have what I would call some gifts that you've been given, but those weren't gifts that you were always aware of. Would that be a fair statement?
That would be a very fair statement, yes.
Tell us about when you became aware of the gifts that you have, and then maybe that'll lead into what are those gifts?
It's really interesting because when you're talking to people that work in spiritual work, mediums, channels, psychics, there's kind of two kinds. There's one type, they say they've had it all their lives. They were aware of it. They saw grandma standing at the foot of the bed, talk to the angels. And then there's people like me who are catapulted into it through a tragedy or a near-death experience or something like that. And that's what happened to me. I have always been interested in life after death and the spiritual and beyond the veil. And I watched John Edwards and, James von Prague but what catapulted me was in 2010, my son passed 2 days before his 28th birthday. It was a very unexpected event. I say that, but I had premonitions of his passing. And, when you go through something like that, I think it's very natural to start looking at, is this all there is? What is the reason? Why did this happen? Did I really lose him? Am I going to see him again? And so that's what sent me really wholeheartedly searching and researching and taking workshops. And that's how it started. And that was in 2010. Yeah.
I can't imagine what it's like to lose a child. So I'm sure that was very traumatic. So how, in a spiritual sense, how are you different now than you were before that happened? And I'm kind of interested in the premonition type of thing that you were talking about a minute ago. Would you address those questions?
Absolutely. The premonition, and I talk about it a little bit in my book, another age that's very pivotal, I'm going to backtrack just a little bit here, that's very pivotal for spiritual workers is 9 years old. And when I was 9, I lost my brother, and he was just about 13. And I knew when he passed, I felt it, and he came to visit me, although I didn't understand it. But when my son was born, and when he was about 1 or 2, I always had this horrible feeling that I was going to lose him twice the age of my brother. Of course, I didn't tell anybody that, because you feel like if you have this knowledge and you speak it, you're going to create it or bring it to fruition, right? So I kept that, especially from my husband. But in fact, that's what happened. Is 2 days before his 28th birthday, which was almost double the age of my brother, is when he passed. People ask me too, and I will tell you this, how did he pass? He was in North Carolina, and he had a very, very bad cold. And he wanted to go visit his cousins. He had promised them that he was going to go see them. And I told him, I said, don't go. I said, you're not feeling good. And he said, no, I'm going to go. I promised him I can't cancel again. Well, he got back there, and it was kind of the perfect storm. Do you remember when the H1N1 was going around? We think that's what he had. But anyway, so he had the very, very bad cold. He was self-medicating with over-the-counter cold medicines. He was on pain medicine. He had just wrenched his back. He had been drinking some beers with his uncle, playing pool. And then he was taking, one of the worst things that he did is he took Mucinex, and there's some very bad things about that. But anyway, it was the perfect storm. And with everything combined, it just literally stopped his heart, and he floated right out of his body. He came to visit me. I woke up right when he passed. It was a horrible feeling. I got shivers, but I tried to ignore it, go back to sleep. But at 6:30, the phone rang, and it was my brother and sister-in-law telling me what happened. So what the gifts then, and what catapulted me, I said, okay, now I'm going to find out why. There's got to be a bigger reason, a bigger meaning to all this. So I went to a medium, a very good medium, and it was really funny how it all happened. And I was sitting in the audience, and I'm thinking, oh, I hope I get called on. And then I'm thinking, oh God, what if she calls on me? So you're fighting with yourself. Well, she did. And she said, I have a young man standing in the back, and he's sending in his big white German Shepherd, which I had. And she said, and she looked at me and she said, do you have a son in spirit? And I said, yes. Robbie's first words to me from the other side were, oops. And I'm going, that's my message, was oops. But he's just saying, I overdid it. Everything in his body was therapeutic. It was just the wrong combination. But anyway, so she went on to tell me, she said, you two are going to work together. Do you know what orbs are? And I said, no. And she said, well, that is going to be your work with your son. He's going to heal souls on his side, and you will heal souls on your side. I didn't know what an orb was. I had no idea how orbs were going to heal. I had no idea how I was going to play this out. But I thought, okay, if that's what he wants me to do, and the medium explained to me, what they were spheres of light that people were capturing on their digital cameras. So, of course, I got a digital camera and started taking pictures. And then that's when the orbs appeared. So, it's pretty amazing, the metamorphosis. So when did I realize that I had gifts? It took a while. And you hear this from everybody. We all have gifts. We all do. There's just some that have, some are concert pianists, some, play at home and plunk on the piano, kind of, to use an analogy. But and each of our gifts are special. Well, my gift was to be able to capture spirit and to prove that there's life after death. You asked me how this has changed me, and one of the greatest gifts that my son ever gave me from the other side was to take away my fear of death. I no longer fear death. I hope there's no pain involved, but I'm not afraid of death because I've talked to Robbie many, many times over these past 12 years, and not me personally through meditation, but I do talk to him in dreams and things. But, you know, he's told me what it's like on the other side. He's told me what to expect, what he's doing, the beauty of it. And so how has that changed me here in the physical? I'm able to live in the now. I'm able to forgive so much easier. I'm able to enjoy and be grateful for just the little things, because those are the important things. And so, you know, when you can take away the fear of death in your life, because so many people live day to day with the fear of dying. And you remove that from the equation, what's left? The joy of life. You know, so that's how that changed me, Dan. That's how it changed me. Hugely. But how has it changed others?
Right.
How is this gift that I have been given changed others? And that goes back to what the medium told me. You know, you're gonna help heal other people. So I started going to groups, and I was attracted and drawn to parents, other parents who had lost children. And this is kind of how it all started. And I would take their picture, and sure enough, there would be an orb right by them. And after a while, I could start seeing faces in the orbs of their child or their loved one or even their pet, and describe it. And then the orbs continued to evolve. At first, only I could see the faces, and I would describe who I was seeing. But then the orbs kept evolving. And now when I capture a face, it almost looks like a pencil drawing inside. So that even my sitter, my client, can see. And when I see them looking at that, and they go, that's my son, you know, and yes, he's right there. You know, we've probably, a lot of us and a lot of people listening to this have gotten messages or readings from mediums, you know, and it's really nice and it's wonderful, but we have to trust what the medium is telling us that they see and they hear. Well, with me, I can show them. They can take something physical home, something they can hold and look at themselves to prove that there is life after life. You know, you mentioned my friend Marty, and what Marty and I do. Marty is an amazing medium and channel, and we team up. In fact, we just did our first workshop demonstration since COVID a couple of weeks ago. But we do demonstrations where she will read people, and as she's reading people, I take their pictures. And it doesn't happen with everybody, but many times as she's reading the person, I get the orb with mom or dad or the dog or grandpa in it. And I think that's very unique. And I don't know too many people that do that, but it's such a great, her and I complement each other for the benefit of the sitter. You know, and that's the whole reason we do it. We do this to serve spirit. So does that answer their question?
Oh, yeah. I have a question. So recently, I was told not to, you know, to be discreet, but we have someone whose family member passed over, and they saw an orb like trying to like get into the house the next day or within. So how come sometimes they're visible to the eye and then other times it's through photography? Do you know why?
Yeah, you know, and that's a great question. People ask me all the time, for the naysayers who don't believe in orbs, they say, oh, it's dust. Oh, it's oh, it's wind, or it's rain, or it's, you know, the camera, it's lens flare. And in many instances, yes, it is. On my website, I have a whole thing called false orbs, you know, and this is how you can create an orb, but that's not a spirit driven event. That's a technical driven event. So when I have people, and I have seen orbs with my naked eyes 5 or 6 times, but the best thing for me, the best medium to use for me is the camera. My own daughter sees orbs with her eyes and has for a couple of times. So why do they sometimes see, do people see with their eyes, or why do they need a camera? It goes to the level of your development. You know, it's just like, why can a medium hear my son talk, you know, but my husband can't? It's because of her level of, you know, spirit meets us where we are at. So, and if you're open and you're in a good place, then you open that channel too. You don't necessarily have to be a medium. So if someone was thinking about that person, or really thinking about the love is the best conductor there is, then that orb, that spirit had an easier way to get in. So that's why they could see it. So, but with me, most of the time, it's with a digital camera. I do not use a cell phone camera. Cell phone cameras have too many filters. So just a cheap, inexpensive digital camera is the best. And, you know, I get pictures sent to me all the time. Oh, look at this orb, look at this orb. And then I have to go, you know, no, I'm sorry, that's lens flare. You pointed your cell phone camera right in the sun and you get a blue dot or a green dot or a red dot, you know. But, and I think they, the orbs like to use the camera. Now I've been doing this, like I said, for since 2010. When I first started, my orbs were like little gray circles. Didn't have a wow factor. It wasn't even in color. But as I did it, and I do it every day that I can, I've built up a rapport. I've cultivated my relationship with spirit in this way. First, they started to come into color. Then the inside started to change. Then the size started to change. Then the type of orbs started to change. Then I would get moving orbs. Then now this year, this just happened, and I was told that this was going to happen. My medium said, Nancy, you're going to start taking pictures of orbs, and you're going to see that the spirit now is going to start stepping out. Like you are going to, it's almost like going to be an apparition, but, you know, from the orb. And that's happened now 2 or 3 times. So that's new. So, you know, the orbs evolve, you know, it's just like what we learn about spirit and the other side. We're just scratching the surface. There is so much more than what we can even imagine. But if we stay open to the magic, spirit will continue to show us. If we think we know everything, it's going to come to a screeching halt. But, you know, I'm always amazed at what I capture. And if you go on my website, I've even named the type of orbs, you know, and I've gotten every color in the rainbow. And I've worked very, very hard to take away the naysayers, or to prove to them, you know, that this is in fact a real communication and not just an anomaly of a camera. So I'm very picky at what I put out there, and I have to know for sure. Here's another thing that I tell people: if you're going to take pictures of orbs, and everybody can do this, by the way, you just invite them in. Ask that this be from the highest good from the highest good for the highest good, and then stand there and take pictures. You always have to have your flash on. It's not that they reflect; it's that they use the Orb Project, the man that did the scientific explanation of orbs. He said they luminesce. I can't remember his name right now. But he was a real pioneer in orb photography.
Mm.
So they use the energy of the flash to appear. And they also use what's behind them to display what it is they want you to see.
Mm.
So, you just, you build up that relationship, and you have an open mind, and it might take a little while, but stay with it. And then when you're all done, I always say thank you. I always say thank you. And so yeah, it's something that everybody can do, but don't be in a rush.
As an old former, I guess that makes sense, paranormal investigator, I tended to not put any stock in orbs. I always attributed them to either some kind of problem with the lens of the camera, or some kind of dust mite or pollen or something that had nothing to do with spirit. So you're refreshing to hear a different perspective about orbs, because you're not talking about just some kind of, well, maybe they're naturally occurring, but it's certainly different than I was exposed to in doing paranormal investigations. So a question that comes to mind based on something you said, can you use a video camera and capture orbs?
Yes, I do not, but some people have. But there again, those Ring cameras that are out there,
I have
and
one.
the video cameras on cell phones, they will capture dust. So you have to be discerning about what it is, that you're looking at. But, Dan, and here's a couple things about the orbs. First of all, when I started capturing orbs, they didn't communicate to me, but they do now. I can get messages. It's like the doorway to their loved ones. But the other thing is, spirit works very, very, very hard to come into our vibration to communicate with us. We're, as we're at a lower vibrational and a lower density. So, but spirit is not willy-nilly. They always come in for a reason, and they make the most of their time. So what I have discovered is the orbs, they will use color to communicate. They will use placement, which is really important. And then, like I said, they use the background. I'll give you an example as far as placement. And then I'll tell you about their purpose, because people always ask me, what's their purpose? And what are they and who are they? So we'll get into that too, if you'd like. But I had a parent, and I was taking her picture, and spirit, I hope I don't jinx myself, knock on wood, but every time I have a client, spirit doesn't let me down. My son promised me he was not going to hang me out to dry. When I have a session, I'm going to get an orb. So I'm taking a picture of this mom, and I'm going, I can't get an orb. I can't get an orb. And so I said, hold on just a minute. So I looked at the back of my camera, and I zoomed in, and lo and behold, there was this little tiny orb right on her ring. And I said, okay. I said, I have an orb, but it's a very, very small orb, and it's on your ring. What is the significance of this ring? Because again, and in my book, I have a whole chapter titled Location, Location, Location. And she burst into tears. She had lost her daughter, is why I was taking a picture of her. She had just picked the ring up 2 days prior, and the stone was made from her daughter's ashes.
Oh my gosh.
Oh. So, dust doesn't do that. Anomalies on your camera don't do that. I have taken pictures of my family members, and they appear just like a photograph that you would have, or you would recognize, or I have. My brothers come in. My dad's a big ham. He's in all the time. My dogs have come in. And you can see them. So it's the photographer. It's the photograph. So again, dust doesn't do that, color. If sometimes my son will come in, and if I'm having a bad day, and my girlfriend will take a picture of me, she She was my orb partner for a long time. We'd do work together when we were first starting. And there'd be a big pink orb like right on my head or my shoulder. Well, pink is love. So I'm being sent love. You know, I've taken pictures where people have had green orbs and it's right on their elbow. And I go, do you by any chance have problems with your elbow? And she goes, oh my God, yes, I just had surgery. And well, you're getting healing energy. Green is healing energy, you know. So people ask me, who are orbs and what are orbs? And if I have to give a one-word answer, that one-word answer would be energy. You know very well we are all energy, and we go back to energy when we shed these physical bodies. But it's not just a single type of energy. I've talked to many people who do orbs, and they'll say, oh, it's just the angels, or oh, it's just the ascended masters, or oh, it's the ETs, or oh, it's the loved ones. Yeah. It's all of the above, because everything is energy. And so I have taken pictures of loved ones, like I said, and pets. I have taken pictures of angels. I have angels. And then I get pictures of famous people from the past. Leonardo da Vinci, Einstein, Nikola Tesla, John Lennon, Charlie Chaplin.
Well, somebody that you posted an orb of the other day that resonated with me is Peter Sellers, because Inspector Clouseau was one of my favorite all-time comedians. So I thought, and as I recall, you outlined somehow Peter Sellers' face. I was very intrigued by that.
Yeah, and thank you. And he probably popped in. There's always a reason. Again, they're not willy-nilly. There's a reason. So, you know, because you were a fan of his and maybe he knew I was going to be on your show, you know, that was a shout out to you. But I loved his message. He was a pretty spiritual man, which I didn't realize. But what I do is when I see the orb, I will hear the name in my head, you know, and then I'll sit with it for a minute. Most people can see the orb if I zoom in on it and they can see the face, but I try to outline just so you can orient your eyes. And once I outline it, and then you go back to the orb, you go, oh yeah, now I see it. But also here's the thing with orbs, they're multi-layered. So again, I mentioned earlier that, you know, spirit meets us where we're at. I can take a picture of an orb and say, for example, I see Peter Sellers, clear as a bell. Okay, I'll show it to my husband. I see a dog, you know, or I'll see an orb and I haven't looked at it for many years, and I go back to it and I can look into it deeper and I see something else. So even the photographs change. You know, it's really quite phenomenal what they do. And then here's the other thing. Before my son crossed, I never really saw orbs when I looked at the pictures. And after he crossed, I went on his computer and I was trying to find all the pictures that I could of him. And there were so many pictures of him with orbs around him that I had never noticed before.
Oh,
yeah. So sometimes even once you're aware of it, because now you're aware of the orbs, when you go back and you look at your pictures, you'll say, oh, I see him now. Yeah. So it's really a fascinating phenomenon. So why are they here? I've already said to bring us comfort, to let us know that, you know, there is life after life, but it's not just our loved ones. It's, you know, our masters, our guides, our teachers, the angels. I'll tell you this quick story. I have a friend who can see orbs with her eyes, and I had lunch with her one time, and we're sitting across the table, and she takes her hand and she's waving it in front of my nose back and forth. I go, what are you doing? And she said, Nancy, there's so many orbs around your face, I can't see you. And I said, what are they doing? And she said, I watch orbs and they fly into our aura, They fly into our mouth, our nose, our ears, into our crown chakra. They go where we need energy. You know, when you meditate or you think and you get an idea and you are inspired in spirit, it's almost like that came from the orb. So they're also messengers. They're also healers. They're also comforters. And I asked my son one time, I said, Robbie, what? And what you have to remember is, you know, when I take pictures of orbs, it flattens them out. But orbs are globes, they're spheres. So I asked my son one time and I said, why are orbs round? You know, and he said, that's the most efficient way to travel between dimensions. So are they ETs? I mentioned that earlier. Yeah. Somehow the extraterrestrials, the advanced life forms, understand how to move etherically like that. You know, they're not so much in the physical as they are, you know, in the ethereal. These are, you know, I believe a lot of the civilizations are really advanced. I mean, the ETs and UFOs are very, very, very advanced civilizations. And so they figured that out. And I have captured some advanced civilizations in my orbs. Yeah. I know, it's mind-boggling, huh?
A couple of questions have come to me. I'm trying to figure out where. Well, one is, I've heard you talk about this. You were interviewed by, I think, a woman in England who asked you for your top spiritual books.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the one Dan sent me. And you addressed this a bit, how your friends and people you knew responded to knowing this about you and how you lost some people. And I'm curious most about your husband and his journey with you through this. What was that like? Was it smooth? Was it rocky? Was it?
You know, that's a wonderful question. And here's how my son guided this whole thing. When I told you earlier that I used to watch John Edwards, right? You know, all the paranormal things on TV. And as I'm watching TV, my son and my husband would be in the back making fun of it. Oh, it starts with an S. Oh, it's a T. No, the name's an R. You know, and I'm going, quiet, I'm watching my show. So that's how he felt about the spiritual before my son passed. My very first, after my son crossed and everybody left, my husband hugged me and he said, you know, he said, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, oh, there was one other, they all passed at 27. Oh, yeah, Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, and Janis Joplin all passed, all musicians. Robbie played the drum. He was an outstanding drummer. So my husband made that comment because he said, you know, now he's maybe got a band going up there, you know. And so my very first reading, where I sat down and I had the medium just to me, she said, oh, Robbie has a message for his father. And I said, okay. She said, yeah, tell his father he's looking up dead musicians, Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin. And I went, are you kidding me? And I said, are you sure you heard that right? She said, yeah. So I went home and I said, your son had a message for you, because he still wasn't sure about all this very early on. And he said, what? And I told him what the medium said. I said, Robbie said he's looking up dead musicians, Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix. My husband's jaw dropped to the ground. And he said, no one knew that I said that except you. And I said, Robbie knew because he was right here with us. So that started him, that one message, one well-crafted message started my husband on his spiritual path and opened the door for him to accept and have faith that there's more to this than he thought. So that's how, now when you lose a child, I tell people one of two things can happen. You're either pulled apart because you go into the blame game or the guilt or the woulda, coulda, shouldas, or you come together. And that was my son's way of pulling us together to make sure, because he knew that what my work was going to be. And if my husband, Rob, his name's Rob too, if he wasn't on board with this, we would part ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how he did that. And then one of the reasons I was on that book club and the books that I showed is because I wanted to read everything I could about, okay, what's it like to cross? What are they doing now? How can I talk to them? What should I do? You know, could I develop this? So that's how, and it was weird too, because Spirit does this when you're on your spiritual path, and I'm sure you two have noticed this. Things fall in your lap. You know, the doors open easily when you're doing the right thing. So I would find the right book, I would find the right workshop, and then it went on from there. But yeah, I couldn't do this work without the support of my husband. In fact, he just built me a she shed so I can do my readings, and I call it my spirit shack. So that's how much he supports me. Yeah, I couldn't do that. And then I've traveled all over the world too. And I go to ancient sites and take remarkable pictures. My second book, I put some of those orbs on my travels in there. So that's how my journey continues to open and continues to expand.
Well,
go ahead, Sarah. No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I kind of feel like Dan inviting me to do this interview and then sending me information about you and me reading it, and it's like things have reignited in me. I had been a little more in touch with spirit world in my 20s, and then just sort of put it away, I think.
Sure.
And recently, like I've noticed my cats like watching things that I can't see, but they obviously see. And like my cat Allie, her ears were back and she looked very concerned about something that was happening in the air. And then also, I mean, this might sound silly, but somebody mentioned a TV show called Ghosts, which it's from the BBC, I think, and it's a comedy, but it's been really comforting to see this couple in this house living with all these ghosts. And it's not scary because so much of media makes things dark and evil and
sensationalize it. Yeah.
Sensationalizing it. So yeah, I feel like you said, kind of when you're ready, things just are right there in front of you. So, and I can see, you know, as a senior and a person that has worked with seniors, and my concern for people in my family who have illnesses, that it's already brought me some comfort knowing about the afterlife, because I do think about death every day. Not so much, I tend to put it on someone else, you know, as opposed to myself, like family members worried about their death, not my own. But it has been very, I think, healing and makes you less afraid.
You know, I forgot to answer one of your questions, and I'll go back to that. But, you know, my son taught me divine timing. Everything happens when it's supposed to and how it's supposed to. And, you know, there are no coincidences. Yes, you were supposed to be here tonight. I knew it when I saw you. I thought, geez, we're supposed to meet, you know, and talk. So, you know, that's Albert Einstein. You know, he said, there are no coincidences. You know, it's God's way of staying anonymous. You know, everything happens as it should happen. I didn't start on my spiritual path till I was 55, you know, so it's never too late, and it comes out and it happens when it's supposed to happen, because sometimes we have to experience life, or we have to have our lessons and our growth until we're ready to step into our own power. You had asked me how this affects my family. Yeah, you know, it's difficult for some people who are very rigid in their religious beliefs, because there's like one sentence in the Bible, you know, that was put there by the Catholic Church that says, you know, you are not to contact spirit on your own. Well, probably because then you don't need the Catholic Church. But you know, or it's evil. And I have a brother, you know, who kind of disowned me, you know. This frightens him. It frightens him because, and it frightens a lot of people, because it's like, wait a minute, I have all this figured out. It's all neat and it's filed away and I don't have to think about this anymore. And then you start learning and expanding on this and they go, no, don't shake my world. Don't rock my world. I'm happy in my little small world that I live in. And the other thing too, is I'll tell you, one of the things if you're on a spiritual path, the hardest thing is to learn and to take responsibility for yourself. You know, a lot of religions, we turn it over, but when you're on a spiritual path like that, you have to do the work yourself. And there's many people that don't want to do that. So, you know, but I believe in this so strongly that I know I'm not evil. I know that it's something my son asked me to do, and I will do it. That's their journey. That's their decision. And I'm not here to convince anybody. I'm here to present my experiences, what's happened to me with the photographs, with the orbs. And I tell people, look, there's no letters after my name. I'm not educated in this because I don't know that there's any classes in orb photography. I'm just a mom. So take what fits and just leave the rest. You know, I'm just here to share, plant the seed. If I open someone's mind up to expand and then to start them on their journey, wonderful. But, you know, I'm not on a crusade.
Right.
You mentioned the word evil a minute ago, and I was going to say, if there are any iconic images of evil, you're not one of them.
Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. So for some reason, I'm thinking about the colors of the orbs, and the thing I'm connecting that with, which there may not be a connection. Are you familiar with Carillion photography, where
Yes.
people's auras? So is there something related to that? In other words, you mentioned that someone saw a pink orb around you. So does that translate into pink always means love? Or can you do that with the orbs, take the different colors and get some kind of sense of the person's aura?
The orbs, yes and no, Dan. The orbs will, if it's, a lot of times I will have a blue orb on my throat. Blue is the color, sky blue is the color of our throat chakra. So I know when the blue is there, spirit is helping me to speak. Spirit is helping me to find the words and to project my voice. So like I said, you know, the pink and the green healing, but also the colors come in. You know, there's a whole nother thing about, you know, everything is vibration. Everything is frequency. And frequency and vibration produce color. So when I see a purple orb, for example, a deep purple orb, I know I'm dealing with a very high vibrational being. I don't get many of those, but you know, those are the ascended masters, you know, and the guides. When I get a brilliant white, I know I'm in the angelic realm. If I'm getting, you know, the orange and the reds, it's a lot of times I'm talking to the elementals, you know, or the earth spirits. So they meet us where we need to be. Like my friend Marty can take a look at you and say, oh, I see reds and greens and purples around you. You know, she can see your aura. What I see is a color of an orb that's coming in for a need, if that separates that a little bit. In other words, if I get a blue orb on my throat, I need help speaking. If you're getting a green orb on your shoulder, you might have, you know, a sore shoulder and you need healing on that. So you're being sent healing. So it's not so much your energy as the energy that you need. I hope that makes sense.
When again, in my 20s, I worked, it was called the 25 Club, because a lot of us were about 25. And we worked for the Michigan Federation of Food Cooperatives, and we worked at the People's Warehouse. And there was a group of women, and we would do various things, go to psychics together and invite someone to do readings, sweat lodges, just sort of experiencing for the first time a lot of things. And we brought a psychic, and I remember pulling up in front of the house of the host, and the psychic was outside, and I could see purple emanating from, like, lavender purple from her palms. And I remember, and I told her, I can see, you know, you've got purple on your hands. And she said, oh, you can see that. And to her, it wasn't a big deal. And I remember telling my boyfriend, and he was like, oh, are you sure she didn't have some kind of glow in the dark paint?
Oh boy, true skeptic.
Right. So yeah, throughout my life, I've had, you know, a ghost speak to me once, disembodied, you know, a voice, call my name, these various things that happen. But I've mostly been like, oh, just stay away from me.
Well, yeah, you don't want, you know, you can't enter and do this work in fear.
Right.
You know, that doesn't work. So I tell spirit, you know, I'm going to do this on the vibration of love, and I do it from the highest good and for the highest good. Right. Anybody else is not welcome. And then I cheat. My son's on the other side. You know, he's not going to send me or have me do anything that's dangerous or bad, you know. But I believe if you don't give fear power, you overpower it. It's that simple. So, but that comes along with understanding and reading and finding out, doing the research. We are so indoctrinated that ghosts are bad and ghosts attack us and there's demons, and, you know, is there good and bad? Absolutely. Have I captured some dicey stuff in an orb? Yeah. What do? I look at it and I go, yeah, you're out of here. I erase it, and then I don't think about it. And I reinforce my prayer to my guides and angels, you know, who do this work with me.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's no reason to fear if you're doing it for the right reasons.
Right.
And do it from gratitude.
We did a show with Karen Dahlman. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but Karen describes herself as a Ouijaologist, and she's used Ouija boards for 30 years to communicate with all kinds of different, you know, entities. And yet there are people, when I talk to them about using a Ouija board, that is the last thing they would do, because they're afraid that even being associated with it is going to bring down the 7th level of hell on them. And I kind of struggle with that, because I tend to believe a Ouija board is nothing but a piece of cardboard, and it's the intent of the user that kind of determines the outcome. But there are sure a lot of people who don't feel that way.
Well, thank you, Exorcist, right? The movie.
Yeah, really, really.
But,
that movie, exactly.
Yeah, but you know, we get these stereotypes. But here's the kind of what happened. You know, are you familiar with the Fox sisters?
Yeah.
Okay, well, they started mediumship, you know, on the East Coast. Well, how did mediumship start with them? It was knocking.
Wrappings.
That was mediumship. You know, you ask a question, you'd get 1 for yes and 2 for no, or vice versa. It's the same thing with levitating tables, or reading cards, or using a Ouija board. It was a tool, because we weren't at a spot where we are now, where we can do it without props. You know, some say my camera's a prop and the orbs are, you know, well, yeah, but I would argue with that, but we don't need that anymore. You know, I took a class, and I won't say any names, from this very well-known English trained medium. And when I first met her, I was so excited because I go, oh, I'm an orb photographer. And she goes, I don't believe in that. I was crushed.
Therefore it doesn't exist.
Yeah, but that was, I mean, the English mediums can be very rigid in, the process and everything. But anyway, so I watched her work, and I'm sitting in the audience, and she's describing her guide. And she told us all about him and how much she depends on him. And so one day after she was wrapping up her presentation, I hear in my ear, take her picture. And I'm going, no, she's talking. Take her picture. And so I'm bantering back and forth with Spirit. And I said, as soon as she's done talking, I'll jump up and take her picture. Because again, I have to use the flash, and it can be very disruptive.
Right.
So as soon as she finished, I jumped up and I took a picture, and there over her head is this giant 2-foot orb. And I zoomed in, and it was her guide, just as she described him. So afterwards I went and showed her, and I said, is this your guide? And she said, yes. And to her credit, she now understands and accepts orbs. But that's how Spirit worked with her. They bring us along. And like I said, it's always evolving. It's always changing.
Mm-hmm. Were you going to say something, Dan?
No, I was waiting for you to say something.
Well, so one of the books I picked up, and I don't know if you mentioned this in that particular podcast where you were interviewed, but a friend suggested I read Journey of Souls by Michael Newton.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so I'm really enjoying that and right now. And then it takes me to I've been looking at your book. Now, so you have Entering the Light Fantastic. Was this recently published?
Entering the Light Fantastic, my first book, was published 3 years ago.
Okay.
And then my second book just came out about 8 months ago, and it's called Encircled by the Light Fantastic.
Okay.
That one's a little more woo-woo.
Okay.
And it talks about my travels and what's happened to me when I went to all these sacred places around the world. My son has told me that I never thought I was going to be an author, but my son said, oh, we're writing a book. I go, no, we're not. And he goes, yeah, we are. But he told me there's a trilogy, so there'll be one more, but I'm taking a little bit of a break. But a lot of these, when I write them, I'll be writing and I forget, and I'm going, what did I just write? And then I'll read it. And I went, oh, that was from Robbie. So I know he's working with me. And it's a good thing because he was a very gifted and award-winning writer when he was here in the physical, not so much for me. But, and he told me, he said, Mom, put it all out there. Don't hold back. So, I had to be really brave with some of the stuff I put in these books.
Right.
But again, this is what happened to me and this is what I know. And then so I'm sharing it.
Well, thank you for having the courage, because whenever we come out publicly about things that people might be skeptical about, you'll get feedback or criticism.
Oh, always, I just wish them well and sever ties, because I'm not going to change them, but it's just, they don't have to attack, and I haven't had too much of that. I think my son protects me a lot from that. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the reasons he told me to go ahead and put everything out there. And, you get to our age and it's like, I don't care what people think about me.
Right. I'm
happy who I am.
It bothers us less.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
The organization that I am part of, I don't think Sara is actually part of it, although she could be if she wanted to. The Olympia 14 Society, named after Charles Fort. And we have a little slogan, which is, let's make the paranormal normal. And part of that is, let's create an atmosphere whereby people can tell some pretty far out kinds of things and not be judged as being nuts or inappropriate or whatever, because as a former sociology teacher, one of the things I'm fascinated about is what is reality. And I have a feeling reality is not what we say it is, because there are too many people who have tried to create images of things that they think are real, but really that's not what's happening to people on a day-to-day kind of a basis. So I can appreciate that. The stigma of saying things that people don't accept. You talked about that earlier. What else I was going to say? You mentioned spirit guides. So how might one access their spirit guides? Do you have any kind of formulaic way to do that?
It's funny you should ask. No, I talk about meeting my guide or my higher self in my book. I was at a workshop with James Van Prague, as a matter of fact, and I was in a meditation early on in my journey. I really didn't even know what a spirit guide was. And so we did this meditation with the intent that we were going to meet our spirit guides. Again, it goes back to intent. Okay, everything is intent. We create with our thoughts, right? So I'm sitting there and we do this meditation and I see, my eyes are closed, but in my mind's eye, in white neon, it was LEONINI. And it was about, a foot high, so I couldn't miss it. And so I came out of it and I asked the facilitator, who was a much more developed medium than I, and I said, "This is what I saw. Do you think that's the name of my guide?" His response was, "Duh." So now through the years, when I do sit in meditation, and this was confirmed by several different mediums, they said, "Who's Lani?" And her name is Leonini. And so through the years, I sat and I wanted to get to know, and then I took a channeling class and I thought, I don't know if I can channel. Well, I started channeling Leonini. And so now I sit and I get messages from Leonini. I have a book of her messages. They're about a paragraph long, but they're phenomenal. She uses everyday items or pictures or images, and then this profound message. I know it's not me because my voice changes. I record myself. But all this happened because I set the intent to meet them. Now, if you struggle with that, then go to a very reputable medium who you trust or who comes with very strong recommendations. My friend Marty would be one, Marty McCrae. And they can tell you who your guide is or who your higher self is. And then once you know, then you can start, once you have a name and a face in your head, then it's kind of easier for you to make that connection yourself. So those would be the ways that I would recommend. But it takes work.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But when you do know, now I know my guardian angel's name too. And her name is Shonda. And Shonda leaves me feathers. They will leave you signs. People will find sometimes coins or feathers or hear a certain song or find hearts or see butterflies or dragonflies or, whatever it is. My guardian angel leaves me feathers, and I can literally ask her a question and I'll say, "Okay, I want a feather. Tell me if this is right. Am I on the right path?" And I will open my front door and there'll be a feather on the welcome mat. I kid you not, so I pick it up, and the more you acknowledge, the more you say thank you, the more you will get. So ask your angels or guides or, what's your sign for me? And they will show you, and ask them to do it in threes. That way you know what it is. My son will send me dragonflies, and so I see that. My dad sends me nickels. I have a heck of a collection of nickels, but it's and they're found in really unbelievable places. So that's how I would recommend that. Can I touch on people who cross and how soon we can reach them?
Yes, okay. Please.
Because I've heard mediums say, "Oh, you can't talk to your father because, he's got to be there 6 months and acclimate and adjust, Here's what I know. I'm called a lot of times to take pictures at memorial services and funerals. And sure enough, there's the orb and there's the image of the person. So that is within days. They're already letting us know, hey, I made it to the other side. I'm fine. Thank you for this beautiful memorial, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm still going to be a part of your life. And the other thing is, I sit in a mediumship development circle, and we have brought in spirits who literally passed that morning and they wanted to talk to their loved ones. What people don't understand is when you get to the other side, there is no such thing as time. In fact, I don't wear a watch anymore. That was one of the second messages that my son gave me. Don't wear a watch, Mom. Don't get caught in the illusion of time. And I had no idea what he was talking about. But on the other side, or on the other dimension, whatever you want to say, there is no time. Everything happens at the same time. It's on a loop almost. We think of time as linear, past, present, and future. But there, it's happening all the time. And so when they get to the other side within minutes, they could have been there 50 years, if that makes sense. Now, that's not to say that their soul still needs to go through some stuff and healing and all that, and it will, because they're going to come back to us and present their healed self as they go through that. They'll go back into their human self. But the ability, and my son has helped people come, sometimes they're accompanied by their guides or angels to help them and to boost them. So this business of, oh, I better wait, or I shouldn't bother them. Don't do that either, because spirits can be in 1,000 places at once. So don't think if you want to talk to your friend, like Robbie had a zillion friends, my son, and they would call me, they go, oh, I asked for Robbie for a dream, but I don't want to take him away from you. And I go, don't worry, he's not, he can do 2 things at once. So, but I know that they learn the ropes really quick because, there they are in the orbs. And then how many people will have a dream that night, of their mom, So, yeah, I don't know how that started, but my son told me, Mom, it's like just going into the next room. I just walk through that door and I'm in the next room. And when I want to come back to you, I open that door and I come back. So it's as simple as that.
I was in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania at the beginning of October, and we did a show with a gentleman whose name is Lon Strickler. He's kind of like me, does a podcast. He's into the paranormal. Well, when he was 9 years old, he grew up around Gettysburg, and he was riding his bike around the battlefield. And he said he stopped his bike, and then there was a television set that opened in front of him. And what he saw was the battle. He saw people in gray and blue uniforms. He heard them yelling at each other. He saw them shooting weapons at each other, and he smelled the gunpowder from the weapons. Then it just all kind of caved back together. And when he was telling me that, I thought, this is a statement about time. I mean, this happened to him in like the early 1960s. Gettysburg was in the 1860s. So I think that to some degree offers some validation for what you're talking about, that our linear interpretation of time may not be all that accurate.
No, and you get into the parallel universes and all that other stuff. But there again, he was 9 years old.
Yeah, I caught that. Yeah.
9 years old, yeah.
Yeah, Tesla said, if we understand 369, we unlock the universe. We unlock the knowledge of the universe. So yeah, 3, 6, and 9 is very important. And then I wanted to tell you too. So again, dates, when orbs appear, I take pictures in my backyard. My backyard is like orb central, but there's always a reason too. I talked about color, location, size, but also when they appear. One night I was out in the back and I took a picture, and I didn't look at my camera until the next morning. And I reviewed my pictures, and there was a picture of an orb, and I zoomed in and I told my husband, I looked up and I went, oh my God. I said, I got a picture of John Lennon. Oh. And he's going, really? And I'm going, yeah, but why would he be in my backyard? Why would he appear last night? Well, it turns out it was on the anniversary and almost to the minute of the day he got shot.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, when you see these things, when like you see an orb, or you get the angel goosebumps, or, just kind of know that there's a reason, the day or the time. Another sign is numbers. So people that see 11:11 on the clock, you're being called to mind your thoughts, or to set an intention. 333, 444. My son's number is 333 to me. But lately I've been seeing 1, 2, 3, 4 on the clock, which means, I'm going up a level. So watch for numbers too. They can be a sign from your guides and angels. Yeah, they work with us. They have to work in our world, right? We live in a 3D world. So they use what's around us to communicate with us. So, and they're masterful at it. They are absolutely masterful.
Mm.
Sarah, do you have anything else for Nancy?
Well, we've heard a lot. I just want to thank you. I know it's been, is it over a decade since your son died?
Yeah, it'll be 12 years this January.
Yeah. So I just want to say, I'm sorry. I know that good things have come from this, and you still are connected. But, my heart goes out to you, and thank you for sharing your journey.
Well, thank you. And, my son has given me so many wonderful gifts, and you get through this by being grateful for what you've had, not for what never was. And if I go into that, that's a dark time, and I can't. But yeah, and he's wonderful at pulling me out of it. So, but thank you. It was a joy to meet you, Sara, and thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Well, I'm going to terminate our program here, although I would like Nancy to hang on for a little bit to talk about another matter. Thanks again, Sara, for being,
Yes.
and Sara, you're welcome to stay for that extra discussion if you want. Thanks for being with us tonight. Sara always adds something to the program. Nancy, you've been a wonderful guest, and hopefully you'll continue to do the good. I know you will continue to do the good that you're already doing. And next time we get together for Anomalies, we're going to have a guest talking about remote viewing. So that'll be interesting. So thank you, everybody, for being this episode.